Hey everyone, it's Adam Ratliff with Adam So Fun. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing the final video in the Day at the Zoo quilt series for the December stitch along, and we're going to be stitching this baby up. Before we do that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and hit that bell icon so you're notified when the new videos do come out. I'm trying to put a video out every week so I can share my knowledge, share my love of long arm quilting with you all, or just anything Fiberworks really. But let's get into it. So I have my quilting plan in my head, and I've started marking my my quilt top. So in case you are new to the channel and you're just in, this is the quilt. This is the Day at the Zoo quilt. It's nothing fancy. It's some flying geese, some quarter square triangles, and some panel pieces. This is the Zoology line by Gingerbread. She's one of my favorite designers because she gives us this negative space that we can play with our long arm quilting. And that's what I just want people to do. I want you to get out there and play and practice. So it goes together really quick. And if you, like I said, if you're new, there's a video series that goes with this to show you how we did the flying geese. It shows you how to do the quarter square triangle blocks. It shows you how to piece the whole thing together, how I cut. And then you can also, in the description below, you can go link the pattern and make this. You don't have to be doing it along with us. You can do it anytime. Just make sure you tag me in your pictures because I love to see what other people are doing. I will bring you up close and show you how I actually marked the top of this. Nothing fancy. Today, to mark, I'm just using one of my OmniGrid rulers. This is 14 by 3. I use this one a lot. I love it. And I'm using a Clover water soluble marker. This is a felt tip. And I really love the Handy Quilter iron off pencils. But in this case, I really just needed a little tiny dot. And this felt tip gives me that little dot in all those places that I need it. So that's how we're marking today. I'm going to be quilting with Superior Threads bottom line thread. This is number 623, my favorite. It's just silver, but it's so thin. It's a 60 weight thread, and it's so thin it kind of just dissolves into all the colors. So we're not going to see a lot of thread, although I'm going to stitch with a lot of thread. We're going to do some really tiny matchsticks to make other areas in this quilt pop. You won't necessarily see the thread. You're going to see all the texture we get from it. So that's what we're doing in the, on the top and in the bobbin. I'm using my Handy Quilter purple bobbins because I'm using bottom line. I keep both colors separate. I use so fine thread from Superior in my silver bobbins, bottom line thread in my purple bobbins, and our bobbin's loaded. We tested it with the TOA, so our tensions in our bobbin, perfect. We still need to mark this. The backing is connecting threads. I think it's lemon chiffon. I just grabbed something in my stash. Again, not a big quilt, so I think this fits in with the fabric, which is awesome. And then let's talk batting. These are going to be wall hangings, so I'm going to use some poly batting. It's not anything I'm going to be cuddling up with. You know, poly's not going to let me, it's going to keep me warm, but it's going to keep me really warm. It's not going to let it breathe. So I tend not to use these in my quilts, but when I'm using, like making a wall hanging, this really will hold its shape really well. So I'm using Quilter's Dream, by far my favorite batting out there. I love everything they make. This is just Quilter's Dream Poly, and this is the mid-loft. I think it's the Select. The request is a little bit thin, I will say that. So I like the mid-loft or even the deluxe sometimes. And then this is the Quilter's Dream Puff. And you can see, like, it's just super thick. This is like quilting with wool. So you're going to get a lot of thickness, a lot of puff in those areas that we don't quilt. And these are both folded the same way. They're both 8 layers of batting. And I could probably get 3 stacks of the regular batting to be the equivalent like height of this puff. I love it. It's going to give us a ton of texture. So I'm going to put down the thin batting first, put the puff on top, and then any place we don't quilt is just going to puff up because of this puff batting. It's going to look awesome. I have a lot of ideas in my head, and then I'm going to stitch them, and they're either going to work or they're not. I know they're going to work. I think they're going to work. I don't know. We'll see. You're going to be doing it with me. Anything else to say? Oh, I'm going to be using rulers. I am probably using the Versatool and the HQ skinny ruler and maybe the HQ mini ruler today. So I do have my ruler base on. Remember, you have to have a ruler base. And I will be stitching with my Surefoot on. And I'll just leave it on the whole time because I'm going to be using rulers and free motion and rulers and free motion. So instead of taking that off and switching back and forth, I'm just going to leave it on the whole time. It works for me. If it doesn't work for you, you know it is super easy to change those feet. Just unscrew that screw, pop one off, put the other one on. So I will bring you in close, show you how I mark this, and then I'm going to finish loading this up, and then I will bring you back, and we'll be on the machine, and we'll get started quilting. So be back in a second. See you in a minute. Sorry, here's our quilt top. I'm doing it upside down, so I hope everything turns out okay. And my idea, these are going to be 2-inch strips, and our quarter square triangles that we made up here are also to end at 2 inches. So I'm marking this to have these blocks end at 2 inches. And we're going to kind of do the same, pull in the shape of the quarter square triangle blocks in our border. So what I'm doing is I'm going to mark every 2 inches. So I can just line up on my seam and I can just put a little dot, which is why I'm using this felt tip pen, because then you can just dot it. It shows up really well. In the center, this ends at 8. Oh, I do have to mark this side. On the side panels, we didn't have to mark because the strip ends at 8. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8. So I didn't have to mark the inner. I did have to mark the outer. But on this one, that we do have to mark the center of that goose. But we only have to put the one mark in the center because this is 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. And then we'll do the other side. And beep, beep, beep. Now, we also need these marks 2 inches from our seam. So I'm going to line up my 2-inch line. And there's a ton of bulk over here from that seam, but we're going to be okay. And 2 inches. You notice I'm not like, this isn't going in a show. This is going on my wall. So if things are off a little tiny bit, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to stress too much. If you are a stressor, perfectionist kind of thing, find that kind of straight line that you have somewhere and go with it. I have a little bobble here when I was pressing over this intersection. So it's fine. We're going to quilt it out. We're not going to tell whenever I stitch this down and things are puffing up and you're looking at other stuff. So that's how I marked. Did the same thing all the way around. And yeah, I'm going to finish loading this quilt up and we'll see you back here in a minute. All right, we're back. Quilt is loaded up. I have the needle down, so I can't move the machine because it's where I want to start. But the first thing I did is, one, I grabbed the rulers that I didn't have. So I have the Versatool. This I use when I'm basting down the sides of my quilt to hold it. So I always baste with the Versatool. And this ruler actually touches every quilt I do. I have the Handy Quilter Skinny Ruler. This is my favorite. It fits in my hand really nice when I'm working. And then this is the mini ruler, so it's kind of the half size of the skinny. Again, fits in my hand, so if I'm doing really tiny work, I can kind of slide this around really quick. So those are the 3 rulers that I'm going to be using. I have my ruler base on, Surefoot. You know, we want to make sure we're safe. And I kind of looked at this because I wanted to kind of map out how I'm going to stitch this. I don't like to break threads. And since we have so much batting going on, we know this quilt is going to want to shift because we're going to be pushing fabric and batting around in extra thick layers. So I've decided that I'm going to start from the outside. I'm going to do one of my diagonal lines connecting those points how we're going to kind of stitch in those quarter square triangles into my center or into my border. So I'm going to stitch into my border. I'm going to stitch the ditch to stabilize things because things are going to want to shift. When I get over here, I can zigzag through the border all the way back to the start point, come back in, stitch the ditch the other way. So I'm going to stitch everything, nothing under, I'm not going to ditch stitch anything under the 2 panels. So I'm going to end up quilting everything, these 2 panels and everything up top first. And then I'll advance. I am going to go ahead and do all the dent stitching. If this is a bigger quilt, you don't really want to do all the dents work. you want to go through and stabilize everything, stitch ditches, do all of that first, and then go back in and doing your dent stitching, because that's going to want to pull. You're putting a lot of thread in there. You're giving a lot of tension. This is small, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to do it. So yeah, so I'm going to hook up a camera on my needle, and I'm going to hook one up just like recording regular. If this one doesn't work, at least you have the recording regular. So there's not much to say. A few things to keep in mind. Be careful when you're stitching with thick batting, and maybe a part of it I'll just stop and talk about it, especially when you start doing texture and stitching that texture in, because the ruler is not going to lay flat, because you're going to have a bunch of peaks and valleys. But at some point I'll show you what I'm talking about. But yeah, hop on for the ride. I'll find a good song to play. All right, so I'm going to get started. I'm using the HQ Skinny ruler, and I'm going to come in 1/4 inch from the side of my fabric, and I'm connecting the dot that should be here. I'm just using the side of my foot onto this piece. If you can't read the writing, your ruler is backwards. I've only got 1/4 inch stitching down, and now I'm going to stitch the ditch around the outside. All right, so I've stitched the ditch all the way around everything, and now I'm going to zigzag up and back to the beginning. And I have these little blue marks that I'm hitting. You'll notice I do turn my machine off every time I stop to move my ruler. Okay, so the ditch has been stitched. I've stitched all my ditches, and I have my kind of diamond shape, or my squares on point, whatever you want to call it, out in my border. So this is what we're going to use in our border. We're just going to kind of use those squares on point. I still have to stitch in my flying geese, and I have this line right here in that border piece, and then my panels. So I'm going to start with this panel, with the sloth panel. So I don't want to stitch in the animal. I'm not going to stitch in the wood. I'm not going to stitch in the animal. So I'm going to come in, and this one I think I'm going to use swirls. So I'm going to do a swirl background fill. When I get to the animal, I can outline it, and then I will talk about how I'm doing things when I get there. I did pull some of my curve rulers to help me get a nice kind of curve as I go around this. This is the HQ Crosshatch ruler, and then I also grabbed the flip side template. Where is the the flip side template. So each of these different curves, so I'll use whatever one fits better. But my idea is that I'm coming into this block, and I want to end somewhere up here. If I have to travel on the ditch a little bit, that's fine. But I'm going to fill in this piece because there's a wall that I can't get across. So I can fill up, come back and do some outlining, and come back and fill around. And I will stitch into the sloth in a few places, but you'll see it when we get there. All right. I'm going to fix some settings and get loose because I'm getting ready to free motion. And we're off to the races. Now that I'm here, I'm going to stitch the ditch around this outside area. And, or not the ditch, but just kind of around the design a little bit. That might work. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to be right on. If I get in it, that's okay. I just am giving some definition. I'm going to come fill this back up. And a few things, when you start stitching into these tight areas and you're using this this double thickness of batting, it's going to start feeling like it's hard to stitch because you're pushing a lot of texture down. So just keep in mind, you're going to use your muscle strength a little bit. And now I'm going to outline this piece, come back, and then I can start stitching again. So I'm onto his head, and I do want to stitch around the whole head, so I'm going to do the outside, come back through, and then travel up on his arm. So I'm not using this really as a ruler, I'm using it as a guide to help me kind of slide around this design. Because even there, I didn't really backtrack right on top of that line very well. But in the long run, nobody's going to be able to see it. And since I'm here, and this is kind of an intersection that that is surrounded by three sides, I'm going to fill this up really quick. Because if I do it now, I don't have to try to travel back to it. And now I'm here, and I wanted to stitch the parts that are on the forefront of that branch. And I think a straight line ruler might help me do this a little better. And there's a little tiny crease here for his arm. I'm going to stitch that crease in. Again, to give it a little more definition. And I have another inner piece, so we might as well fill that in while I'm here. And now the interior of the sloth is done. I can finish filling out this exterior. Alright, so the sloth is done, and now I'm going to come in and do my flying geese, and with these I am going to stitch the ditch around around the colored pieces, and then we're going to straight line quilt inside the white, just using some vertical lines. So the geese are going to pop out, and I'm going to stitch across this piece first. This will make those geese pop out. A few things. Here's the mini ruler. Again, I traded this out because it's smaller and easier to kind of maneuver around. And you'll notice it doesn't have any of the HQ grip tape on it. And that's because, or the handy grip, that is because I slide my rulers around a lot. So especially like this one that I need it to maneuver and slide, I don't put that tape on. Things like circles and the angle rulers and the hexagons, those I all have grip tape on. These I don't because I do slide them around. So now I'm just going to do some matchsticks. And I can't, I can't tell if you can see this. Yeah, you can. So when I was talking earlier about when you're using a ruler, you have to be careful, especially when you're using a lot of thick batting. The ruler here will lie flat. So if it's laying right here, like I can push something up under it, but see how the fabric is moving when I do this. Now look back here in the distance, and this ruler or this will slide right under that because that's how much loft this has between the top of the Goose, the triangle unit, and the sky unit, because I've pushed those sky units down. So the rulers can now rock a little bit, so you have to be careful that you're always keeping the ruler pressed down flat. So just a quick tip. All right, so now we're going to do the koala piece, or the koala panel. With this one, we're going to do a paisley background fill. So I'm going to make a paisley shape and echo it a few times, and then make another one to come off. This is not my best background fill out there, so it's one that I always like to practice when I'm doing things like this, because it's going to look good. I've put a lot of batting, I've matched threads, I've done all those things, so it's still going to look good, but it's one of them that I definitely have to think about more so than some of the others. All right, so the two panels are done, and the flying geese in the middle are done. Now it's just to go in and do our border. And just like I did with the flying geese, we have these diamond pieces that you really can't see in the camera yet, just my stitching outline. So I'm going to fill in the right and the left sides of each of the diamonds, pretending like this is one of those geese pieces. So I'm going to get these popped up like squares on point. All right, everyone, so we finished the top section of this quilt. As I was stitching it, I decided I'm going to make three sections, or three parts. I'm going to do the top, and then I'm going to do the center border and then the bottom. I might make it 2 because you don't really need to see the border pieces again. But just to kind of break it up because I don't like the videos to be super long. I'm going to, at the end of this video, I'm going to show a video of just kind of the texture, turning some of the lights off so it's not so bright. Because when you have all this bright light, it's really hard to see kind of the texture that you get from this. I am loving it already. I love the sloth. I could stare at him all day. I can't wait to do the llama because he always makes me smile and giggle a little bit. But make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video and hit the bell icon so you're notified. You can always follow me on social media because I post a lot of pictures there that don't make it onto my YouTube, and that's Adam So Fun, SEW, on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you in the next video. And remember, at the end of the day, it's just quilting. We're having fun, we're laughing, and we're just having a great time. See you soon.